Hello, friends! Thank you for picking me up from the airport. I had an amazing time in the Philippines. I can't wait to talk to you about this lagoon boat tour I took. We came across this secret lagoon, and I wish I could show you pictures, but we weren't allowed. Hey, you know what? I guess I can try to describe it instead. Well, the water was super blue and there was sand everywhere. The weather was nice and, well, I guess this isn't the best description. You know one way we could spice up this description? We could use similes to describe it. Our goal for today is to identify examples of similes. By the end of today's lesson, you should be able to create a written description with at least 3 different examples of a simile. Let's define them, identify them, and then practice creating them. Make sure to use the PDF attached to this lesson to follow along and write notes. So, a simile is actually a type of figurative language. Remember, figurative language is when words have a meaning other than what is literally stated. This type of writing paints a picture with words and emotion. It can even be used to emphasize certain characteristics of people, items, places, and other things. A simile can best be defined by its criteria for a simile. A simile must use the words like or as in its sentence and compare two unlike things. We will use this criteria as we are identifying and creating similes. Here, I found a review of this airport on my iPad. Maybe we can find some similes there while I wait for my bags. Nikki wrote, "The airport is like a dump. It stinks of old socks. The airport is like the dirty airport back in my hometown. The place is as messy as a pigsty. Never go to this airport if you can help it." Wow, Nikki is extremely creative with her similes. Can you locate the similes in that review? I think there are 2 or 3 of them. Let's take out our simile checklist. The first criteria is that a simile would have the words like or as. We can filter out the rest of the review to find those similes. The highlighted words have those signal words like or as. That checks off the first criteria for a simile. Okay, the first sentence says, "The airport is like a dump." In this sentence, what are the 2 things being compared? The airport is the subject of the sentence and it is being compared to a dump. By creating this simile, Nikki is telling us that this airport is extremely messy and dirty. Because these 2 items are unlike each other, this is a simile. How about our next one? The next sentence that uses the words like or as is, "Going to this airport is like the dirty airport back in my hometown." This sentence definitely has the signal word like as listed in the criteria for simile. But does it compare 2 unlike things? What are the 2 unlike things being compared? This sentence is comparing the airport to another airport. Maybe comparing the 2 airports is comparing 2 like things, so they are not unlike each other. In fact, they are too similar. This is a common mistake when writing similes, so always make sure that your similes are comparing 2 things that are not similar. Comparing 2 things that are not similar to each other is what makes similes especially effective. Since we need to compare unlike things, that wouldn't be a simile. Let's look at this last one. "The place is as messy as a pigsty." I already see that it has the signal word as, but doesn't compare 2 unlike things. What are the 2 things being compared? The place is being compared to a pigsty. This means that the airport is unclean and disorganized. This is another example of a simile. Nikki did such a good job using similes in her review. Even if I can't see the mess she sees, I can definitely imagine it with her writing. Before I start using similes to describe the amazing secret lagoon, let's practice creating them with simile frames. Whenever you're creating similes, you can use these frames to help. Let's use this frame to create an example. So if I wanted to use similes to talk about how colorful the sea life in the lagoon was, I can use any of these frames. For example, you can say, "The colors in the water are as bright as a box of crayons." Either one of these frames can greatly help with writing your own similes. Now it's your turn. If I wanted to use a simile to describe how scared my cousin Brandon was to go snorkeling, how would I write that simile? You can use the frame below to help form the sentence. Brandon was as scared as what? An example of something you might come up with is, Brandon was as scared as a kitten stepping out of its crate for the first time. What if I talk about how my younger sister Ella was too short to zip line? An example of something you might create is, Ella is short like a tree stump. Awesome! Now I can finally start describing this secret lagoon with my amazing simile skills. The weather on the island was as hot as the summer weather. It was like I've been waiting to see it my entire life. Hold on. That doesn't seem right. Let's look at that criteria for a simile. Does this simile use like or as? Yeah, okay, it definitely does. Next criteria. Does this compare two things that are not like each other? Hot weather on the island to summer weather are two things that are absolutely too similar to be a simile. Think back on that airport review from Nikki. You can't compare an airport to another airport the same way you can't compare weather to the same type of weather. Because of that, this is not a simile. Let's try this. Maybe I can compare the hot weather on the island to something else that is hot. Maybe an oven or fresh chicken noodle soup. Yeah, those two items are not the same as hot weather. Perfect. I can compare the beautiful sight on the island to, let's go with something magical. A fairy tale. Okay, let's give this another shot. The weather in El Nido, Philippines was as hot as an oven as we pulled up to the secret lagoon. I felt the soft beach sand in between my toes as I saw the magnificence before me. The sight of the lagoon was like seeing a fairy tale come to life. The water was as crisp and refreshing as the fall morning air. I breathed in the island air and I couldn't help but appreciate paradise. Wow, that is 1,000 times better than the water was super blue and there was sand everywhere. So, now we know that a simile is a type of figurative language that, like it's said in our criteria for a simile, compares two items that are unlike each other using the words like or as. And that is the power of what figurative language can do. Just wait until you see what other figurative language tools you can use to describe things. Who needs a camera on vacation when you can paint a picture with your words? Hey!